Okay, second video. It's astounding because I'm going to talk about Genuflect. And it's amazing. I just made a video and it just vanished. So I'll do it again. Have you noticed that the sun is different? Have you noticed that this is a different sky from the sky of your childhood? Have you noticed that some of the planets look different? Saturn is apparently losing its rings while Jupiter is getting brighter. Tracy Twyman is not only brave, but I consider her an absolute genius. And everything that happened to her, as far as I can tell, is what has been happening to me. And I've watched her last videos where she explained that it was through the internet. Like me, her website was taken down and no one would respond to her. She could not get her website back up. My Vimeo account is still restricted, and yet I'm still being charged for it. No one will respond to me, even though I've emailed them several times and tried to complain to PayPal for the charges. Cannot get through. My credit cards were hacked. My email accounts were hacked. All of this same stuff has happened to me, in addition to the thousands of trolls that I have to deal with, the robotic people who are either absolute technology bots or have had the gene deletion. So they nitpick, but they have no greater understanding of what it is that we're speaking about. So I will be forewarned by what happened to Tracy that when you start to get into this kind of material, it's like the trolls come out of the woodwork. And her price on her book has gone up to $2,400 and some dollars. Because this book is so valuable, I cannot tell you how important this work is. And if you're going to criticize or nitpick or be concerned about some symbol that she has on the book because you have no idea what you're even talking about, I'm going to need to block you, because I now understand that the demons that attack literally actually come through the internet. So all of this has already happened, in addition to other things that only my confidants know about what has happened. But this tells me that we're on the right track. This is how they do it. This is literally how they create the inversion. They call down these archons. They do perverted rituals for the archon's benefit. And the archon then has to submit to their will. So the archons are the sun and the moon, because both of those luminaries have been pulled down. So their true etheric body is somewhere else of the sun and the moon. Just like I believe that the true system environment that we are from, Gaia or Tara, is also somewhere else. And this is a copy of it. This is a copy of a sun and a moon. The true etheric form has been called down and perverted. That's how they get the inversion to work here. And then the other archons, which are Mercury and Venus, which she calls Nymphis, the goddess of lust, who is also the goddess of battle and always wants to have sex with Mars, who wants to kill everybody. They do these rituals with these archons, with these planets, to get them to go their way. And anyone who has risen to any level of, whether it's in politics or Hollywood or anything, they're involved in those rituals, because it does not work for you unless you submit and contract with these archonic beings, these plasma beings, which are Jupiter. Do you notice Jupiter's tremendously brighter? And that's because they're working with Jupiter. So the asteroid Draconia is traveling with Jupiter, and I believe that's where Nibiru is. So they will do rituals that are perversions to invert even further the quality of these archons. And that is why no matter how many times we celebrate their weird holidays of Saturnalia, which is when Santa comes, Saturnalia, and the slaves get to be free for a few days. That's Saturnalia. She explains that. And we do these stupid same rituals of Xmas, which is a ritual of calling down the sun and assigning it some like crucifixion program of a newborn son. And every year, Saturnalia is represented by the slaves get to go and have food and eat their little stupid hot dogs and red sauce, which probably is created by the same processes that she talks about, because we now know what's in all of that meat. You do know, right? You know what's in it. This has been proven even by sheriff offices and several different federal agencies. What's in these burgers, you do know, right? So they get us to eat that stuff. And they get us to do it on certain ritual dates so that we are also creating the inversion. So Saturnalia and Santa and his little like red hat, she explains that all perfectly in here. It's astounding. Easter and the Easter bunny. And you know, Easter is adrenochrome. The bunny is literally the shape of the molecular signature of adrenochrome with its ears. And then finding the egg, right? All the little kids are going to go find the egg and they're all going to get excited, and a big loosh feed is going to happen from that, because then they're going to eat a whole bunch of chocolate that looks like poop, right? What do you think's in that chocolate? I got to ask you folks, are you reading this book? Because of all the books that I've read, and I've got the Dead Sea Scrolls, I've got the Old Testament of the Jerusalem Bible, I've got the American Ephemeris, I've got Genuflect sitting right here as some of the books that I'm reading right now. Of any book that really tells what this place is, it's Genuflect. That's on the top of the list. It's above the Dead Sea Scrolls, it's above the Old Testament. Genuflect tells you what's going on here. And how through these perversions, they get us to do it now also with the internet porn. And so I've heard from my clients, men in particular, they're addicted to it. It's calling them. Even like in the night, it's calling them, and they're getting weird dreams that are not even their particular perversion. And then some incubi or succubi, which are the vampiric groups, come and take their semen. They need your semen, boys. Better read the book. And then if you say to me, oh, that book is so dark, you're just focusing on something. If you cannot look at this, this is exactly how the inversion gets done, is that you think this is not happening. Well, for my clients who have lived through this, have been part of this kind of weird perversion shit, I want to congratulate you for being able to even survive this place and to get your own little brother and sister out of that program. And I have clients, particularly from England, that this has happened to. And I hope that they write their book soon to support more from what Tracy Twyman lived for, what her research was about. She dedicated herself to try and explain this. So if you out there are going to get freaked out because she's got this symbol and that symbol means something scary, that is your own fear. And that means that you're vibrating in their perversion frequency. Like, I can read this and be absolutely innocent and untouched by it. Why? Because I do not do their cult programs. I'm not doing their stupid Easter egg hunt. I'm not doing their stupid Valentine's crap. I'm not doing their stupid bowl, which is the biggest human trafficking event that ever happens. And that is like, if you go to that and you watch that and you're entertained by that, or you have a family gathering and you eat their freaking food, you're doing the perversion of this matrix, which is what inverted it. So I've heard people get really angry with me, like, oh, she just wants us to live like her and grow her own food. That's not what I'm saying, folks. I'm saying the food in the store has this stuff in it, this perversion. It's astounding to me that you want to eat your pizza. It is. But if you want to, go ahead, because that contracts the frequency and the cellular information of your body. And that is then equivalent to whether your heart is light as a feather so that you can leave here, that you know completely what this place is. So I wrote a lot of notes in my notebook. I'm going to discuss some of the pages, and we're going to discuss this as if it is a fiction, because that's how Tracy had to present it. So Saturn and Saturnalia and that whole ancient Roman ritual of Santa with the little hat has to do with Sibyl's priesthood. And that had to do with this being, this meteorite thing that apparently fell from heaven. And that is the meteorite form of black goo that I've spoken about before. And they have a transvestite priesthood. So that's all in there on page 125. It talks about that whole thing. Did you notice the elect person at the inauguration, his wife, when she tipped her head, that hat was the symbol of Saturn. That's the transvestite priesthood. And anyone who's a body worker knows what I'm talking about, like the figure, the form, and what that person is. So the Sibyl, which is this black rock, is an anti-male construct, whereas the Mithraists are an anti-female. They rape bulls and then slit the throat of the bull. They put those together, the Sibyl and the Mithraic, and they created a Frankenstein monster. My belief, and it's an opinion, but that they have the head and the skull of some avatars. Notice in one of the videos that I shared from the Knights Templar, the Grand Master was talking to his academic associate, and I could tell there was a sexual relationship, so watch it again. I mean, I knew it immediately. Like, that one's subservient, and that one is the one that causes the subservience. So they were all talking about how happy they were to find the skull, the head of John the Baptist. And when you read in here about the skull that was found and that they had sex with the eye socket of the skull, that's how they get this perversion to happen between the Sibyl and the Mithraic traditions. They're both against any kind of natural relationship. So it has to be like it's against a natural gender type, or what you would consider like a natural sexuality. It has to be anti-male and anti-female. This is what this whole inversion is about. And yes, they create Frankenstein creatures from bones. Do they not? Do they not animate them with feces and semen and urine? I mean, when I read this book, I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what they do. They have to make it truly disgusting. That's how they complete the inversion. And do you think that anyone's going to figure this out? No, folks. They just voted for them again. They just voted for the same exact group, which I have been explaining again and again and again. This is the billionaire club. They don't get to be billionaires just because they know how to play the stock market correctly. This is the magic behind it. This is how it's done. The transvestite priesthood that is both anti-male and anti-female. So all of the people who are thinking that I'm some kind of crazy feminist, no, that is not what's going on. Do you know what's going on? The whole movement right now of having your genitals mutilated is exactly their movement. And now it's in mass across the board that people are neither that nor they're that, and they're like 80 other weird pronouns of what their gender type is. This is their golden age. Do you not understand? And yet they'll speak out of both sides of their mouth that they're against that woke movement and blah, blah. That's their theater, folks. They're actors. They have a script. They have to make the sleight of mind happen by saying they're here to protect you as a natural male and a natural female. But in their own family, I got a screenshot right here of Elon Musk's dad talking about having sex with his own stepdaughter. Have a look at that guy. Do you know how many children he has? Please have a look at him. Do you know what he is? Do you understand what goes on here? Because in this book, the guy uses his own adopted daughter in a virgin rite where they kill a bull, and then massive sexual perversion to this little girl who's on drugs and thinks that she wants to have sex with these people. I mean, folks, this is how the big billionaires build their empires. And again, I got to just say that she's writing this as a fiction, because to say this kind of stuff is so alarming that it looks like I'm the problem instead of that picture that I just showed you. What is this guy? He admits it. Do you know how many children they have? And then I saw something about somebody got a hold of Elon Musk's sperm, and it has CRISPR technology, and they're having this baby. These are the breeding program people of the perversion. That's how they rise to these levels of science and technology. And then we vote for them, and we think they're our messiahs. This is totally the Antichrist stuff, folks. This is how they complete the inversion. So then all this weird stuff about how the castrations, and he married this princess who was in fact his own mother. And then Zeus granted Attis, the baby boy, life so he could be resurrected and marry his own mother. And if you look at the person-elect and the way her own child is looking at her, if it is a her, because again, I'm not sure it was this video or the other one, her hat, when she dips her head, look at it, that's Saturn. She is literally playing out this whole story of the Sibyl and her son, Attis, who got fertilized by a heavenly father with a zinc spark. I mean, a lot of people wonder what that kid is. He looks like a Nephilim, is like 7 feet tall. I think that is the self-born that she's talking about here on page 127. That thing is a product of all of these rituals. And you know who's going to take over after the Antichrist? That thing. That is considered a self-born. The other thing that I found very interesting is this Orphic egg. And as I said, I've talked a lot about the eggs and all the addictions to like the royalty with their eggs and stuff. So their story is that the snake lion version of Mithros came from an Orphic egg, which means that it was born from anal sex with a transvestite. The slaying of the bull in this book very much reminds me of how they repeatedly have to rape steal and murder Andromeda, that princess that was chained to a rock and so forth. And then the same story with Medusa, how they have to cut off her head. It's the blood and the slaying of the bull. Do you know Andromeda has to do with Taurus? So they're literally repeating the same story of severing us from Andromeda by cutting the neck of the bull, of using Medusa's severed head. These people create Frankensteins, and then they manipulate it by doing the ritual again and again and again, which is why if you're doing Xmas, or you're doing Easter, or you're doing Valentine's Day, or you're doing the stupid bull, which is the biggest human trafficking event that there is, and again, that's on Imbolc, the major day of magic here. They're doing all of this stuff nonstop, and you're watching the TV and being entertained by it. You're adding to the perversion. If you're eating their weird ritual foods, which no doubt have all of those products in it, do not know what they're putting in all of the meats and so forth. I mean, even police officers have talked about what they're finding is actually in these ground up meats and your hot dogs, and even your vegan hot dogs all have this, our children in it, folks. It's been proven. 2% of all of those fake meats, those plant-based meats, are human DNA. And I would like you to do your own research and not just be some inquisitor troll who wants to nitpick me. You have to do your research. That's why I read books. I don't watch other people's internet stuff. So this whole idea of slaying the bull and cutting its throat and raping it at the same time is that severing from Andromeda. Andromeda is part of the constellation group that would be considered Taurus. So they're reenacting that again and again. And then let me look at page 130, where they had to balance their inverse realm by combining these two beings, Sibyl and then Mithros, which is the slaying of the bull, into one being, which is Janus. Janus is the major deity. It's like an egregore, okay? They can pull this entity down into them by doing these rituals, and they can keep Janus and the whole idea of this two-faced anti-male, anti-female thing of the chaos god going, and they do it with these rituals. The Knights Templar reject sex with women, except for orgies in which they get prostitutes and, under their own confession, only sodomize them because they reject sex with women. So all that you've thought about the Templars protecting some sacred right, that's the sacred right, folks. It doesn't have anything to do with the sacred bloodlines or the Merovingian or the mermaids and the merline. All of it is a perversion. They have to pervert it. And then they call down page 131, Venus or Nymphis or Lucifer, because she came from the castration of Uranus, and she marries her own brother Dumazi. But no normal sex is allowed, right? We got to have incest. We got to marry our own relationship, either our own son or our own brother. And I've talked about that before. We got a Venus retrograde coming up in about a week. And no doubt it's going to be conjunct a moon on the first day of Mars. Mars. I am just like, oh my gosh, they are about to do some massive ritual again with Venus as Nymphis or as Lucifer, and they're going to pervert everything they can. So just watch what's going on. The Knights Templar apparently kiss each other's genitals and the butts at the end of an induction ceremony. And I watched something and shared something from the Buzzsaw. Not that I'm saying you should be watching Gaia.com. I'm talking about just what Tracy had to say. Be careful about which way you're going. If you're going left-hand path and you think the Templar path is your path, you might find yourself at one of these induction ceremonies, okay? And apparently, according to them, in order to become a grandmaster, you have to allow all the other brothers to rape you. I don't know if that's true or not, okay? I'm discussing what Tracy is presenting as fiction, but according to the interview at Buzzsaw, she had all the documents, and they weren't under like duress. Like, these people just admit this is their protocol. So stay in the middle, folks. If you're on the left-hand path and you're joining the Freemasons or the Templars or the Priory of Sion or any of those Illuminati groups, know that that's what's going on. And if you suddenly like, I gotta have sex, I need to watch some internet porn, that's because they're doing that ritual at that time. And you should be going the other way, away from any of that crap, because you're getting entangled in their soup of a ritual. So really watch this in March, because we got a Hermes retrograde, we got a Venus retrograde, we've got an eclipse at 10 degrees Aries. I'm going, holy crap, what is going to go on? So they do all of this. They destroy a natural creation. That is their purpose. And we know that Aleister Crowley is admitted to having sex with animals, and while he was ejaculating, slitting the throat of an animal. So whether it's a boy or a girl or a creature like a bull or a horse or whatever they're doing this like blood and semen perversion. And sodomy hits your first and second chakra, like your stability, your rootedness, your groundedness, your ability to survive, and it hits it with like a fear frequency like you cannot believe. Because when they do that, that comes out as a frequency to the rest of us. Like, it hums, it vibrates, it hits us. And I think that this is what they're doing. And I've also seen in the Dolphin Ancestor book, like, they're trying to do this with dolphins. Like, oh my gosh, people, like, the pure perversion of this Brotherhood of the Snake. That's what it's called, okay? They want to pull the sun and the moon down. And the eclipse season is coming again. They did this on April 8th. That's a totally different sun than it was on April 8th. And now we're going to have the eclipses in March. Mars is Aries. It usually has to do with war. So I'm not sure what is going to go down. And I'm looking at my notes so that what we have to understand is this is a copy of a sun and the moon. And this is a copy of Tara or Gaia. But still we're within it, because the real etheric body of a real original sun and moon are still somewhere. They do these rituals to seduce them down into some kind of perverted thing. And they like literally pull down the sun and then invert it so it's upside down. And then we are forced to bow down to the newborn sun. It's astounding to me. And then when she gets into the smart city stuff, it's exactly what I have been talking about. They've got holes in the wall where you can ejaculate. They're collecting your poop and your pee, and women have to lay down on a table. They get paid to go to work those days, while for 2 days their menstrual blood is sucked through their body, because that's all they're really there for, is their menstrual blood. I mean, she even describes what I see as these smart cities, and she explains exactly how the smart city is going to take off our biofield and our electrical energy. And what's more astounding to me is those are the concentration camps, these smart cities, where the only way you're going to get food is if you're giving your secretion to the building. It's literally a demonic building. And they're going to make them with all of this sacred geometry, which is not sacred, it's profane. And they're going to use those geometries because these archons, they're doing those frequencies through geometric movements in the sky. So they have to call them down through the temple space, which is a smart city, into an altar room that is set up to match the sky. That's how they do it, folks. So some of the other stuff that I've been looking at in her book is the Baphomet creatures on page 135. And they're talking about being able to pull in a time-traveling 5,000-year-old vampire. Do you know anybody like that? Who is then demonically animated with the spirit of this ancient being, but is in a new android body. You know anybody like that? But they pulled that spirit from that other body and put it into this body. Do you know that there's a patent for putting souls into cyborg bodies? I've shared that patent number several times. Nobody cares. Not even relevant. But this is how weird and scary this game is, because as they're setting this up, they're planning to do this with all of us. That's what a digital twin is. That's why I'm blocking and deleting any asshole inquisitor nitpicker from now on. Because you folks, I don't know what you are. Maybe you had the gene deletion and you cannot see the bigger picture, but you're not going to nitpick me anymore. It is astounding. That's just what happened to Tracy. She had people after her. She had her Google account hacked, her credit cards, her financial statements, her book, her website, everything. And that's what's happened for me also. I mean, it's terrifying for me to even go and do my taxes to see if I'm still in the system, because I apparently don't have a credit score anymore. Do you know that? And yet I have perfect credit. So that's how scary it is, folks, when you start to get into this. So then on page 137, I really think that they have basically taken the mummified head of John the Baptist, and he was the baptizer of wisdom, you see, but they can use him as a Frankenstein, and the word egregore, E-G-R-E-G-O-R-E, I think that they can pull literally the avatar of John the Baptist into this Frankenstein body, and they can make it work for them. It can give them answers about the stock market. It can answer all kinds of questions outside of space and time, because they have pulled down this being. That's why it's very important for you to not put too much energy into any kind of ritual object that you own. Also, be careful, because that's how they pull them down. They pull them down like the Dalai Lama shit, right? With some of the previous objects, like a ring or something like that. So do pay attention to that, folks. Then the other interesting thing was March 24th, which is the day of the blood for the Easter egg or Esther egg blood castration. But that's super interesting to me, because by April 1st, they consider you a fool if you think that Jesus Christ actually rolled away a stone and came out of a cave. That's not what that is. You're a fool if you think that that happened. April Fools. So it comes right around that same time for all of you fools who think that that's what's going on. The real Yeshua was never crucified. They literally do this ritual of eating the body and the blood every Sunday with millions of people to keep that stupid crucifixion fiction going. And that was in all my blogs. I had books worth of blogs written, folks. And when people have tried to download in the Go Back machine, they can't even get it. It's so much material that I had written about this same stuff. And then Lent, right? You have to abstain from meat. And then they tell this whole ritual where they cut off the castration ritual, right? And then the bits and the parts are part of some kind of effing soup that they eat and feed to birds, these ravens, right? It's crazy stuff, folks. But this is exactly how they moved us on from other places. They do ritual perverted magic. That's how they can sever us from Andromeda. That's how they can create a whole new matrix and simulation copy. That's how they can pull down the sun and make it even a grosser sun, like a digital sun that's pulsing and bleaking and doing weird things to our DNA. So this is all unbelievable to me, folks. I'm like, wow. And then when I heard some information about like how they're doing this now with the digital babysitters, with kids watching iPads, and I'm going to say something. Your kid on an iPad or playing video games, they are able to harvest the sexual energy of your child while they're looking at that iPad. So now they can do this basically through the internet. And they can do it. That's why Yuval Harari says, you know, we have too many people, just give them drugs and video games. It's because they know that if you're slightly lobotomized with the food that you're eating at the store, and your kid is just sitting there like in a daze looking at the screen, they're able to harvest the sexual energy literally through the video game, folks, because there's like fear, and I know there's rape in some of those video games. That's how they're doing it. So that's like that babysitter iPad, they're harvesting your kid. That is pedophilia. I have other ways of documenting that, which I cannot say right now. But then you start to wonder, well, like, what about the Gnostics in general? Do not get lost that all Gnostics were evil, just like all Hebrews are not evil, right? There's a very small group that they're using the Hebrew letters as an inversion. That's what they're doing. It's not that the Gnostics and the Dead Sea Scrolls are evil. It's not that the old scriptures are evil. It's the way people are using it. And I just had a conversation with a client today about the cuneiform. Like, the cuneiform is absolute lies, folks. It's like English, which is English. It is a deception. Do not believe cuneiform either. So when they're translating the Bible all the way back to the cuneiform, nothing but hatred for women. They hate women. And that's that whole Sybil thing, right? They believe this black rock is the mother. And it's so disgusting. Like, folks, just read it. But that is the originator of black goo, right? So that thing is the meteor mother goddess of all the black goo that is on this planet. But the real gnosis, and I was reading the second discourse of Seth, and I like Seth, the real gnosis is beautiful. And that's where you have to stand in the middle. You don't also want to go all the way on the right-hand path and be like all religious about Jesus and Yeshua and so forth, because that is an egregore also. Like, you are it. You are it. Nobody but you needs to be it for you. Only you need to be it. And in the second discord of Seth, the Christ said he was the Son of Man. He totally says he was not from this like fallen angel thing fucking some woman. No, he was the Son of Man. And he said the 12 prophets in the Bible from the cuneiform are laughing stock. Solomon was laughing stock, which tells me that I know for a fact that there was a Yeshua that was from the house of Solomon, and there was also a Yeshua from the house of Camelot. That's my Yeshua, okay? That's who I align with. So when everyone gets upset like that she's disparaging Yeshua, no, she's not. She's trying to tell you how they do it by inverting the whole thing and making it this disgusting thing. Whereas the real Christ said Solomon was a laughingstock, John the Baptist was a laughingstock because they aligned with the angels. He was a son of man. He was not aligned with the angels, which are the angles of the archons. He said Adam was a laughingstock, Abraham was a laughingstock, Moses and David, all laughingstock, because they were aligned with the fallen angels, the Nephilim. Isaac, Jacob, all the famous people of the Bible, according to the Christ, in the second discord of Seth, are laughingstock. And that's because they were doing all of those same redundant rituals, just like we're still doing now. And those redundant rituals hook into the perversions, okay? And he says, last of all, in that second discourse of Seth, which you can find at gnosis.org, the demiurge is created by these powerful archons that create the whole matrix by frequency. So that's what I've been explaining in all my old astrology videos, showed like the movement of these archons and how they move. The other book that I'm going to start reading by Tracy Twyman is called The Cutting of the Orm. And I just got this morning, and it shows the tarot and many of the very interesting symbols and symbology of how the waveform, our waveform, is used here as a sequence of these archons. So the Fibonacci literally comes from Venus, okay? And they have tied us into the Tower of Babel and the wrong language, and they created our bodies basically on that Fibonacci sequence so that we have these weird sexual misery templates in us. It's like, you got to watch that. Love has nothing to do with that, folks. Love is a state of being. Sex is something else. I just want you to know. And then there's some fabulous stuff in here. I'm not suggesting you get this book because I'm not sure you understand these symbols and will be able to read them. But as an astrologer, here's Ophiuchus, which is where my sun is, and she talks about why Ophiuchus, the 13th sign, is not part of it, because it has to do with someone who can handle the Draco snake, or what's called the serpent holder. And she gives all the way back to how under the sign that Dagobart was killed, that they had to take that out so that nobody knows who Dagobart is. It's astounding. And here's the Hebrew alphabet placed on the zodiac. So one of my things that I'm going to be doing is I'm going to try and reverse the Hebrew, bring it back to a more pure form, because they use the Hebrew to do the inversion, because it's a language of creation, just like Sanskrit. I would say the other one would be like Finnish-Ugaric, probably a native Australian language is in there also. So I was trying to think of like, what would the languages be of the fire codes that we are? And I think Delphinese is one of our codes also. So I was trying to figure that out. And I actually do think, I don't know whether it's Egyptian hieroglyphics or Delphinese or whether those are related, but I'm still working all that out. And this is longer than I usually make my videos. I mean, we're already at 43 minutes, but I wanted to just like see how you're doing with this Genuflect. I know from my clients that whether these kind of ritual abuses have happened to you in this lifetime or they've happened to you on Nibiru or in Andromeda, pretty much what I understand about the whole galactic history is this follows us. So even if you get out of here, this follows you, folks. It's very important to figure this out here. I know that the Dracos, in whatever form they are, the high-level Draco queens still want their loosh feed, and they demand it throughout the galaxy. As far as I know, Black Goo has taken over 10,000 or more other galaxies. So if you think you're just going to get out of here and just like be done with this game, I don't know. While you're here, I would study, I would pay attention, because if they can do this here and invert a beautiful paradise system that was Gaia or Tara and change the sun as often as they want, they can do that anywhere. So we really have to pay attention. And my bigger concern is that they're trying to break free. Like if you read or listen to the videos of the Lacerta project, Lacerta, it was a female Draco that came to somebody who was a complete disbeliever. But she came and she basically said, you know, we're using you as our slaves and we are about to change you again. to be able to break out of this prison, and we will use you out there. So that's the big picture of what I'm talking about. It's like so multifaceted. You can't get stuck on one thing. And someone was like doubting me because of a symbol on a book. Folks, if you can't read this stuff, that means that you are somehow contracted. You are not innocent from it. I'm completely innocent from it. So when I read this stuff, I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what's going on, because my consciousness is clear. I'm not worried about like becoming part of a cult by looking at that symbol, because you know what that symbol is? That's a symbol for Pisces. It's the two fishes tail tied, which I've already spoken about. So if they can make it so that you do not know that you are in Hades right now, but your real cosmic fish is with a true organic primordial creation, then you're lost at sea. That's the whole thing about Pisces. So if you're worried about that symbol, it's because you're not educated. Okay, that's my video for now on Genuflect. I'm not sure I can make another one, because where this goes and where it's going, as far as I can tell, this is what Tracy saw all the way back in 2017. This is what I've been seeing, what these smart cities are. It's like, holy crap, folks. So thank you, Tracy Twyman, for your work and your bravery. And I thank any of you who are out there brave enough to make these same connections and try to reverse the reversal and understand it, because it will follow us. Don't think that getting out of here is your ticket to freedom. Realize that. All right. Thanks for your attention and your bravery. Bye-bye for now.